Panic with Dragan from Spidercracker. About to release a new record and a new sound.
So this sound is kind of my vision. I mean, I produced the record and everything, but this is the kind of sound that's in my head. And then when I have new members in the band, I never try and mold them to make them sound a certain way, necessarily like make them sing or play exactly a certain way. I just sort of direct them in what the feel should be.
Right.
And if they're, having issues or struggling, I use their strengths to put their 2 cents, their feel, their artistic point into the song, and I work with that. I don't make them like, you got to sing this way and you got to play bass this way. I would say, play it smooth, play it from the hip, sing with your breath, and if you want to add in your little nuances, that's great. I want you to do that, I want you to be you. But I sort of just guide it like a producer does, I don't force it down anybody's throat, and I don't expect people to do what they can't do. I take what they can do and just bring that out even more. I work with their strengths.
One thing I want to ask you is, what was your journey to becoming a sound person?
I always have been, always. Like, even with the early stuff like 10-Foot Henry 20 years ago, I produced that too. So I knew about sound, and for whatever reason, in all the bands I was ever in, I was always the guy hooking up the PA. I was always the guy patching in the cables, and I was kind of nerdy as a kid, and building the early computers and stuff. I'm nerdy in that way.
Right.
And sort of interested in electronics, and my cousin was an electronics guy. And he went to school for it. So I used to hang out with him, and we used to build light chasers and from scratch. So I know the basics of it pretty good. And then eventually I did go to school for it, and I got a degree in it too.
Okay. Did you go to school here in Vancouver?
Yeah, I did quite a few years ago at Nimbus.
Okay.
And I got a degree for it, and then I produced a bunch of records after that, and I was mostly a studio producer and engineer.
Right.
And then,
so coming up through Nimbus, how important was that for you? How necessary was that for you as an artist in everything that you do?
It was awesome. It filled in all these gaps for me that I had. Like, I knew this, and I knew this part of it and that part of it, but I didn't know the other stuff of it, and I didn't know these little tricks, these invaluable tricks that Garth Richardson would show me, or Bob Ezrin would show me, because those are the founders. But when I went back then, it was really band recording heavy. It was not hip hop guys there. There wasn't like that kind of sampled stuff. Now it's more like that, because of course that's what the younger people want to hear.
So when you go to school now, you're really getting like a lesson on how Pro Tools works.
Yeah, pretty much Pro Tools and any of the newer electronic gear. When I went there, I was working off a 2-inch tape.
Okay.
And Pro Tools and analog boards. When the big digital boards were there, but they weren't as much used. And so, like this stuff that you hear from Spidercracker, it was on Pro Tools, but everything was mixed through a giant SSL board at the warehouse on analog, through analog compressors, through all this like $300,000 worth of outboard gear.
I'm guessing you're using a lot of amps instead of like synth or software plugins.
Yeah.
Right.
That guitar sound you're describing, that came from one amp with no pedals. I had this little Champ guitar amp. It's maybe 25 watts. And I would put different guitars through it, swap out tubes, and drive the hell out of it to get my sounds.
Right.
And that was it. And I'd be, okay, this track, I'm going to do this. And I do the opposite. And I do this and that and this guitar. And until I just concocted sounds. I do use pedal boards in my live shows. I have a huge pedal board. It's bigger than what you guys have,
for
actually.
For sure. No, I remember, yeah.
I've elaborated on that since.
Okay.
It's even bigger now. It's kind of crazy. But anyways, for the studio, I just actually used real sounds. And I guess that comes across. Because plugins are one thing, and then you can get some amazing plugins these days. But with proper mic technique and just using the room to your advantage and the gear to your advantage, you can get way better organic sounding sounds.
Right.
Yeah.
So if some young person out there has the hustle, is it reasonable to say that within a certain amount of time that if you're in the city of Vancouver, you can go from working those small rooms and working your friends' gigs to actually, doing it for a living? I realize now that being a musician, you have to kind of do many different things. You have to have different income streams coming in, but being a sound being a sound person, pay the bills, and can that be like a full-time job?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Have you ever toured with bands doing sound?
Not doing sound, no.
Not doing sound.
No, I'd always done that for myself, for my bands, and now I kind of make a living out of it, and it's good. You get $250 a gig. That's cash.
Right.
Do 3 gigs, 4 gigs a week. It's not bad. It's pretty good. You do the best that you can. And it isn't easy. So any new sound guy, that's their hardest thing. It can be stressful if you don't know how to handle an artist, the psychology of it, It can be very, very stressful.
6-7 years ago, people would really talk about how the Vancouver music scene, sucked. That was a central point of conversation. And I found in the last couple of years, it seems that there's been sort of a shift in places like the Fox or Fortune. I interviewed another artist, Junk, and he's a hip hop artist here in Vancouver, and he had his record release at Fortune on a Monday night, and it was packed in there. And then talking about going to see one of Adam Fink's 4x4s here at the Fox and seeing it packed on a Tuesday. I just feel like the kind of people that are going out to shows it's more now than just bands supporting each other. It's people that are just potentially going out to see live music, and I'm wondering, I'm just thinking that maybe there's a turnaround. Maybe the live music scene here is getting stronger. Perhaps, there's more population here than there was 10 years ago to support it. Are you seeing that as well, or am I just being completely naive?
No, it's totally the live music performances are coming back. That whole sampled music DJ thing. DJs will always be around. They've been around from the 70s, right? I mean, that'll never change.
Yeah.
But that's run its course, and I think there's like a 20-year cycle, 15 to 20-year cycle where music sort of comes back from punk rock to metal to to DJs, and then it cycles again to a new version of punk rock, new version of metal, a new version of rock and roll. And I think we're just cycling back into live music, and people love to see live music being performed. And I mean, I'm doing sound there at the Fox or the Anns, and I could see the younger people mixed in with the older crowd from back when the music live scene was good, digging the same band, and I think people are going back to real. They're just going back to real. They just want to see somebody sit up there and play the drums and sing and play the harp and guitar and do whatever they want to do. I think maybe 20 years ago, everything just was so the same. The music was all the same in all the clubs. It was all rock and roll. It was all metal and stuff. And that just killed it, and the industry killed it. And that's all they were pumping out in these clubs because it was popular, but it never changed. And now it has. And now you can see a punk rock band, and then you can see some singer-songwriter, and you can see opera singer singing with this techno band. You can see different stuff, and it's popular, and it's like kind of surprising. So that's really cool. It's kind of like now it's going back to the 60s when, people be like, what is this music? Oh, I don't know what it is. Let's just put it out there and see what happens and let the kids decide instead of the record execs deciding. Because they have decided, and they ruined the industry. When you think you know what's good or what's bad, that's then they become, those A&R people become the arbiters of taste. And really, you don't know what's good or bad and what's going to hit. You just don't know. And that's the way it should be. Just put it out there. See what sticks.
Thank you so much to Dragan. Check out all the links below and go see live music.